You think buying a red light therapy panel makes you an elite performer. You think tracking your sleep with a $300 smart ring puts you in the top 1% of society. You believe that because you consume hours of optimization podcasts and buy expensive gadgets, you are actively building a superior life. You are completely wrong. Right now, your brain is suffocating under a massive mountain of unapplied data and fake progress. But you do not earn this feeling of optimization through actual physical or mental execution. It is financed by cheap, artificial dopamine spikes generated by pure consumerism. When you consume optimization content and buy health gadgets without ruthlessly executing the biological fundamentals, you are no longer a high performer. You are a dopamine addict disguised as an intellectual biohacker. You are outsourcing your discipline to a microchip. Let us establish a brutal clinical reality. The modern biohacking industry has completely hijacked your identity. You look at the top 0.1% of society, the elite athletes, the billionaire founders, the apex thinkers, and you assume they reach that level because they have a secret morning routine. You assume they have a hidden supplement stack or a magical piece of wearable technology that unlocks their brain. This is a massive psychological lie sold to you by an industry that profits off your insecurity. Elite performers do not biohack. Elite performers execute. You, on the other hand, use biohacking as a sophisticated form of procrastination. You spend 3 hours optimizing your workspace, checking your heart rate variability, and preparing your exact macronutrient ratio. And by the time you actually sit down to do the hard work, your cognitive battery is empty. We need to perform a clinical autopsy on why your optimization routine is actively destroying your output. It begins with the neuroscience of the dopamine reward prediction error. Evolution hardwired your brain to release dopamine when you achieve something difficult. This chemical is designed to reinforce behaviors that ensure survival. But the modern wellness market has hacked this pathway. When you click buy on a new wearable device or an expensive optimization tool, your brain anticipates a massive reward. It releases a violent flood of dopamine. You feel a rush of motivation. You feel like you have already achieved the goal just by making the purchase. Your brain registers the transaction as actual biological progress. You are getting high on the illusion of action. You get the exact same neurochemical high as someone who just completed a grueling 2-hour cardiovascular workout, but you did absolutely nothing. You just spent money. You are artificially stimulating your reward system without paying the biological price of execution. This is why you constantly jump from one biohacking trend to the next. The moment the dopamine spike from the purchase fades, the package arrives, and you realize you actually have to do the work, you face profound psychological friction. Real health is boring. Discipline is tedious. Building a business or a strong body does not give you an immediate high. So, instead of facing that friction, your brain searches for another shortcut. You convince yourself that your protocol is just missing one more gadget. You are using consumerism as an anesthetic to numb the pain of your own inaction. Now, let us look at the clinical danger of the quantifiable self. You wear a ring to track your sleep. You wear a strap to track your recovery. You check an app to tell you how you should feel today. You think this is data-driven optimization. In reality, you are creating a devastating psychological trap called the Nocebo Effect. The Nocebo Effect is a scientifically validated phenomenon where negative expectations lead to negative physiological outcomes. When you wake up feeling completely fine, but you look at your app and it tells you your sleep score is 45% and your nervous system is unrecovered, your brain immediately triggers a stress response. Your amygdala perceives a threat. You spike your morning cortisol in a toxic, chronic manner. Your data is making you biologically fragile. Because a machine told you that you were tired, you biologically become tired. You alter your posture. You reduce your output. You skip the gym. You approach your work with a defeated mindset. You have surrendered your internal biological awareness to an external algorithm that is guessing your sleep stages based on basic heart rate sensors. Elite performers do not operate this way. An elite athlete does not need a ring to tell them if they are recovered. They listen to the biological feedback of their own central nervous system. They understand internal signaling. By obsessing over external data points, you are severing the mind-body connection. You are training your brain to ignore its own physical reality in favor of a screen. You are becoming a hypochondriac of human performance. Furthermore, you are actively destroying your cognitive bandwidth. Every single data point you track requires mental energy. Every time you log a meal, check a metric, or adjust a light panel, your brain must burn adenosine triphosphate or ATP. Your prefrontal cortex has a strictly limited capacity for daily decision-making. When you overload it with the micromanagement of your biohacking protocol, you induce severe decision fatigue before noon. You are spending highly valuable neural resources managing the aesthetics of productivity instead of executing the actual tasks that move your life forward. You are playing the game of optimization while the elite performers are playing the game of execution. Complexity is the ultimate excuse for failure. We must dissect the fundamental difference between passive recovery and active adaptation. The biohacking industry sells you passive solutions. They sell you infrared saunas, cold plunges, compression boots, and massage guns. Hours lying down, letting machines do the work for you. You think this is how the top 1% build resilience. It is not. Passive recovery has its place in elite sports. But for the average man, it is a dangerous distraction from the biological law of progressive overload. True biological resilience is built through active adaptation. You cannot buy adaptation. You must force it. When you lift heavy weights, you physically tear muscle fibers. You create localized inflammation. You force your central nervous system to recruit more motor units. This physical trauma signals your DNA to synthesize new proteins and build a stronger structure. When you perform intense cardiovascular training, you create an oxygen debt. You force your cells to destroy weak mitochondria and build larger, more efficient ones. This process is painful. It is uncomfortable. It requires immense willpower. The biohacking industry wants you to believe you can bypass this pain by sitting in a cold tub for 3 minutes. Cold exposure is a useful tool for acute dopamine release and vasoconstriction, but it will never replace the systemic structural adaptation that comes from lifting heavy iron. You are substituting hard physical labor with expensive discomfort. You cannot hack a weak foundation. The entire premise of biohacking is fundamentally flawed for 99% of the population. Biohacking implies that your baseline is already perfect and you are looking for a 1% marginal gain, but your baseline is not perfect. Your baseline is a disaster. You sleep in a room filled with artificial light. You consume highly processed, hyper-palatable foods that destroy your gut microbiome. You stare at a blue light emitting screen for 10 hours a day. You have the aerobic capacity of a sedentary child. And yet, you are researching which specific peptide will increase your cognitive focus. You are trying to put a Formula One engine into a car with flat tires and a rusted chassis. It is biologically absurd. This brings us to the ultimate law of the top 0.1%. It is called the execution ratio. Elite performers understand that external inputs are useless without internal outputs. The execution ratio dictates that for every one external optimization tool you use, you must have 10 flawlessly executed fundamental habits. If you buy a sleep tracker, but you do not have the discipline to turn off your phone and go to bed at the exact same time every single night, you violate the ratio. The tracker is useless. If you buy an expensive nootropic supplement, but you do not have the discipline to sit in a chair for 4 hours and do deep, undistracted work, you violate the ratio. The supplement is just expensive urine. The elite performer strips away the noise. The elite performer does not seek more things to do. The elite performer seeks to eliminate everything that is not essential. This is the secret to unbreakable consistency. When you strip away the gadgets, the trackers, and the complex routines, you are left with the raw, unglamorous reality of human biology. You expose your eyes to sunlight in the morning to trigger the cortisol awakening response. You hydrate with water and sodium to maintain osmotic balance. You lift heavy objects to trigger mechanical tension and protein synthesis. You sprint to build cardiovascular capacity. You turn off the lights at night to allow melatonin secretion. You sit down and do the work. There is no app for this. There is no shortcut. Why is this so difficult to accept? Because it removes your ability to complain. If success requires a $10,000 biohacking setup, you have an excuse for why you are not successful. You can blame your lack of resources. You can blame your genetics. But if success only requires sunlight, gravity, water, and relentless mental focus, you have nowhere to hide. The execution ratio attacks your ego. It forces you to look in the mirror and admit that you are not lacking tools, you are lacking discipline. The wellness industry profits off your desire for a scapegoat. They want you to believe that your fatigue is a complex medical mystery that can only be solved by their proprietary algorithm. Your biology is begging for simplicity. You must declare war on the illusion of complexity. You must undergo a total identity shift. You are not a biohacker. The human body is not a computer code that you can hack. It is a highly evolved, anti-fragile biological ecosystem that responds to environmental stressors. When you stop treating your body like a fragile machine that needs constant tweaking and start treating it like a robust organism that needs heavy resistance, your physiology changes. You stop feeling exhausted. You stop feeling overwhelmed by your own routine. Your liver enzymes stabilize. Your dopamine receptors upregulate. Your baseline energy skyrockets because you are no longer draining your central nervous system with the anxiety of micromanagement. Are you someone who endlessly consumes the aesthetics of productivity, or are you an elite executor? While average men chase the next biohacking trend, trying to buy their way out of hard work, you choose what is grounded in clinical reality. While others complicate their mornings with 15-step routines and heart rate monitors, you simplify it. You wake up, you execute, you adapt. You strip away the noise and you master the unglamorous fundamentals. That is not luck. That is biological sovereignty. And sovereignty is the quiet, devastating superpower that separates the fragile consumer from the apex performer. Pause and write this down now. Stop negotiating with yourself. Stop outsourcing your discipline to a microchip. Stop buying gadgets to hide your lack of willpower. The market does not care about your sleep score. Reality does not care about your morning routine. It only rewards the relentless execution of the work. Myelinate the habit of extreme simplicity. Protect your cognitive bandwidth from the optimization industry. If you want to master your human biology and translate clinical science into unfair advantages, subscribe to the channel. Close this video right now. Take off the tracker, execute the fundamentals, and do not come back until the work is done. I will see you in the next one.